There are a lot of mascot suits in Secret of the Mimic, and in my last video, I added every single one of them into my Minecraft map. Now with that being said, they are missing a very important feature, and that is, well, the Mimic itself. Right now, all of these mascot suits are just props and decorations to be scattered around the place, but today I want to take the idea one step further and actually have the Mimic randomly appear in any of them at any time, and is then going to start chasing me around the build. This is probably going to involve a lot of command blocks, and is definitely going to take some time to figure out, as like what you can see here, there are still a bunch of mascot suits that I've yet to even add into the map. Just that one room I was in earlier is an example of the mascot suits that can be in a room at any given time, but there's still plenty that need to be set up in their proper places. But I don't just want to limit the Mimic to being able to roam around in just these mascot suits, I also want to set up some of the main named characters like Dolly roaming around in the doll hospital, or even Chica in the main warehouse. So it looks like I've given myself a lot to do in this video, so without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Now while I could stick to the VIP lounge for this, since that's where all of the mascot suits have currently been set up at, I think it would be more exciting to look at some of the other areas in MCM, where there are just as many, if not even more mascot suits scattered around. And I think that the workshop is going to be perfect for this, as there's also a whole bunch of different variations of mascot suits that we didn't get to check out in my last video. So first things first is actually setting up the mascot suits themselves and where they're going to be positioned at. So if you haven't checked out my last video, I would highly recommend it as I go over how this entire system works. So instead of having a single mascot suit in every position around the entire map, I've only made a handful of them, and the same models are going to be teleported across the map whenever they're needed. Now, because I've only made a set amount, it means I only have a handful to work with, which means I'm going to run out of those mascot suits. All I need to do really is go back to the command block systems where all of these guys have been made at, change some of the tags at the start of them so that way they're numbered as an extra armor stand model, and then teleport them around the build wherever they're needed. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and look over it quickly. So this command block row right here is what summons in the actual armor stand models themselves, where you can see each command block represents a different limb of the armor stand model, ranging from the body, the legs, the arms, the head, and so on and so forth. After that, this second row right here is then what sets the scale of each of those limbs. That way they actually look proper once they're all being teleported around each other. So this command block right here is what actually holds the armor stand model in place. That way I don't have to teleport each individual limb across the map. They're all centered around a single base armor stand. Then finally are these command blocks behind them, which are what change the actual look of the armor stand model. So since this is the Mycelium Men, there are 4 color variations to choose from, whether that be blue, red, orange, or green. So what those command blocks are doing is replacing the armor on the armor stands with the items from inside of this chest here. However, this part isn't really that important, as since I'm adding in an extra Mycelium Man model, they're not going to be in the world permanently, so they're not going to need to change that color. Now, even though it's not important, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be very time consuming to set up, as I need to change every single one of these numbers to a 6 for the new one. This is going to take a while, and this is exactly why I brought a cup of tea with me. But if all goes well, if I go ahead and power this command block chain right here, we should see that we have an invisible armor stand frame for our Mycelium Men. We should probably put some clothes on them. And 3, 2, 1. That was very loud, but we now have a brand new Mycelium Man. Let's actually get him out of there. So that would be TP at E tag equals, this is 6, so we want Mycelium Man costume B1, which is the center armor stand. And if I teleport them all there we go. We got a brand new mascot to work with. Let's actually get him teleported up to the build, then do this however many more times for how many mascots are missing. This is gonna take a while. Do you ever do something where you know it's going to take a while, but you also know that it's going to help you save a lot of time in the future, but you still hate doing it regardless? That's pretty much what I'm up to right now. God, this is taking forever. No. And this should be the last one, which puts us at I don't know how many models, I gotta be honest with you. What I do know though is that we're currently sitting at just under 800 total entities, which is exactly why I didn't want to put a armor stand model at every position that it's supposed to be, and instead reuse them whenever I can. So all of the new command blocks I've set up to spawn all of the new ones in are then going to be powered every time I load in this area. Then every time I exit it, it's then going to kill all the armor stands. That way there's no extra entities inside the world. And I might as well remind you as well that I'm not going to be making armor stand models for each of these block built ones that are just for decoration. If the Mimic cannot take control of the mascot costume, I'm not going to be making an armor stand model for it. And no, it's not because I'm lazy, it's because I genuinely don't think my computer would be able to run the game if I were to do that. With all of the teleport commands now out of the way with, the next thing to do is to link them all to the system that's going to power once we enter this room in the first place. Now, as you can imagine, this is going to involve a lot of command blocks, as not only is it teleporting all of the existing armor stands into the room, but it also needs to spawn in all of the new ones with all of the armor already equipped. Now, I went over this idea a little bit at the end of my last video, however here you can see what it looks like at a much bigger scale, and I mean, I can't lie, there is a lot of command blocks here. Just think that every single row is dedicated to a single mascot suit here. Now we'll go over all of this one by one later on, but right now I just want you focused on this small system right here, which is what actually gets the door to function. Again, I've gone over all of this in my last video, however in case you missed it, the way these doors work is by interacting with an interaction entity above this wall here, which is then going to open up the door if I'm holding the data diver with the correct security level. Now, since this is an airlock, it's going to close the other door behind me, and this is when all of the armor stands would then get teleported into the room. Now, there has been a small change made to this system since the last time I showed it off, which was actually done on a live stream. As a reminder, I do stream every weekend on either Saturdays or Sundays, so if you're curious on how I make these maps work in more detail or have any questions about them, be sure to stop on by. Now really the change boils down to the fact that I don't want there being so many entities loaded in at once. So what's going to happen when I walk away from the door is the armor stand and the interaction entity are then going to despawn. That way I don't have to worry about having an entity loaded in if I'm on the other side of the map. However, once I walk up to the door again, it's then going to spawn back in the armor stand and the interaction. That way I'm able to use the input and open up the door again. Now the reason I bring this up is because the input for the door system is also what's going to power the command blocks to determine if an armor stand model is going to be inside the room or not. So this row right here of command blocks are for the teleport commands. So this first one right here is for all of the existing models, meaning if we already have a model that exists on the other side of the map, it's simply just going to teleport them. However, this second row right here is for all of the bonus models, which I don't want loaded in at all times. So this one right here is for all of the new models that are going to be created once I enter the workshop. So that's why you see so many commands here, because these are all of the command blocks that spawn in the bonus models. So every row at the bottom is what spawns in the armor stands themselves, and the command blocks on top of them are then what give them the armor to wear, that way they actually look like the creature they're supposed to be. Now this final command block row here is what actually gets rid of all of those armor stands once I exit the room, so I don't need all of them to be available if I'm not in that room anymore. So each one of these command blocks here is running an execute command positioned at an armor stand model's coordinates, and is going to kill every armor stand within a 2.5 block radius. So that way I don't need to worry about any of those armor stands anymore, they're going to be completely removed from the map. Now with that being said, you can see that there's not a comparator in front of any of these command blocks, and that's because I haven't actually tried this out myself yet. Everything I've just said is theoretical, I'm not sure if it's actually going to work. So now that I've backed up the world a few times, let's see if this is actually going to work. Well, let me rephrase, work in the way that I want it to. Moment of truth. Well, it didn't spawn them in the right place? Where are they? Are they down here maybe? Well, there's one here. You're not supposed to be there. I might actually just be doing something silly, and it's because I made all of these chain command blocks conditional, which basically means that the first command block needs to be powered for all of this to power in the first place. So what if I try again? What if I just change them all? Oh, that was literally the reason. Oh, what's up with this guy? This guy didn't get any armor whatsoever, okay? Well, you know, it's a better start than before. Oh, that's, well, it worked for some of them. Oh yeah, no duh, this repeater isn't going to be able to power this command block right here in the first place. It's only going to do these three, so no wonder. Oh my goodness, really? If you're going to take away anything from this video, let it be this. No matter how much you think you know something or how much experience you have with it, you're always going to be stupid at some point. I've been doing this whole command block thing for nearly 3 years now, and if you think that everything I make works first try, no. Right, let's try this again now. Good start. Maybe not. What happened there? We got Dumbo over here with big ears for some reason. Well, you know, we're making progress. You just don't exist. What happened to you? Are you down here? What's up with you? Wait, what? Did he just not power at all? Oh. Here's a tip that I've just learned my lesson from. If you're ever going to use the system that I've used where you want to load in and unload different entities, make sure you know which entity you're doing it to, because you probably shouldn't kill off the original. Okay, it's been a bit now, but I'm pretty sure everything is now good to go. All of the armor stands are going to despawn if they need to, and all the ones that need to stay here or get teleported elsewhere also do so. So let's go ahead and unload the build. Now we should see that some of them have stayed. That's because they need to, or they'll be teleported somewhere else. But you can see the obvious ones are all gone. So there was one there, there was two in this corner. There's a bunch of them up top, like there was one there, and then a few of them here. Cool. Okay, so they're all despawned. And now when we load in the area again, now everything has gone back the way it should do. So these two are back. Everyone is back upstairs. Everyone is in this small garage here. Cool. All right. So this system now fully works. And now that is just part one out of the way with. I don't know why this took me so long, but I guess that's what's going to happen when you're working with hundreds of different entities. But now that all of that is finally done, now I can actually get to working on the main focus of this video, which is getting one of them to activate if the Mimic is inside of them. I'm making progress. Finally. For this next segment, instead of getting right into the build, I'd like to welcome you to the CuppaTeaExe thinking room, otherwise known as my brain. I'll try to explain it as best as I can before I get started. So right now there are 24 mascot suits scattered around this room, all with different tags. None of them are connected to each other whatsoever. So what I need to do so that a randomizer can select one of them at random is to give all of them the same name. So I'm going to name every single one of those entities so that way a teleport command can teleport a villager, for example, to one of those mascot suits at random. So the first thing I'm going to do is name every single body one armor stand of the mascot suit to mascot body, then have a villager teleport to one of them at random. That's going to decide which mascot suit is going to become the Mimic. After that, it then comes to the animation side of things, which is where things get a little more complicated, as I really don't want to have to manually animate 24 different mascot suits with the exact same animation. Luckily, all of them are already built the same, so I don't have to do the same thing multiple times and just change the tag at the beginning. Instead, what I'm thinking is give every individual limb a set name. So every right arm will be called mascot right arm, every body will be called mascot body, every mascot leg will be called mascot leg, for example. From there, what I can do is execute the command positioned at the villager, which is currently teleported to one of those models. And then what I can do is change the rotation values of the armor stand closest to it with the set name. It's going to take a little bit of work as now I have to manually give every single armor stand a name. But at this point, I'm used to it, and it's honestly a lot better than having to animate 24 plus armor stand models. So once again, I need to go back through every single command block and just name it the exact same thing. Every single one. All right, so theoretically now, if I do execute at E, name equals cost b1, limit equals 1, sort random, and I do run TP at P to that position. Okay, that's one. That's another. Okay, it does every single one of them. It doesn't matter how far they are across the map. It teleports me to every single one. So now what I can do is limit this so that way it does it within a certain distance. So let's say I only want it to be within 20 blocks. Now it's only going to teleport me to entities within a 20 block radius. Okay, that is the first part done, and hopefully the last time I need to go through every single one of those command blocks, because bloody hell, it takes way too long. There's been a lot of complaining so far in this video, but I really want to let you know that I genuinely really enjoy this. Like, this is seriously fun to put together and figure out. But bloody hell does it sometimes take a while to do. Now, going back to the teleport commands, this is going to be our M2, this zombie right here, which is tagged as M2. Now, inside of this command block right here is the actual teleport command that's going to teleport it to one of those armor stand models. So it's executing this command positioned at me, and is going to run the teleport command to teleport M2 to a random model within 30 blocks away from me with the name Cosby1. So if I go ahead and power this command block right here, we can see that it's teleported somewhere, where to one of the random armor stands with that tag. For this next part, I'm going to give the zombie its AI back, as once it gets teleported to one of those models, I now want for the zombie to take control of it by having the model teleport over the zombie itself. So inside of this command block right here, I'm going to start by typing execute at AE tag equals M2, so which is the zombie, and then we want to check if entity AE name equals cosb1 is within a distance of, let's just say 1.5 blocks, just for the sake of it, so 1.5. So if the zombie is within 1.5 blocks of any entity with the name cosb1, we want to run a TP command AE name equals cosb1, and we want to teleport just one of them, so limit equals 1, sort equals nearest. That way only one armor stand is getting teleported over the zombie, with that of course being the nearest one, which is the one it teleported to in the first place. Then we want to teleport it over the exact coordinates of the zombie, and just have it facing the exact same direction. So if I go ahead and power this command block here, then teleport the zombie into the build again, we should now see that once the zombie starts moving around, it has the armor stand model on top of it. Now obviously, it looks a bit silly right now, there's obviously a few things I need to set up, but the general idea is here. The zombie is moving around, and it's bringing the Jester costume along with it. Now you can see that the zombie is being very stupid. This is what I feared using Minecraft AI, but you get the idea. It should hopefully start chasing after me. What are you doing? You know, there's only so much that I can do when it comes to the command block side of things. After that, it's genuinely just hoping that the Minecraft AI does its thing, because like, what am I supposed to do with this? But ideally, this should now work for every mascot suit. So if I teleport the zombie up, then teleport to the zombie, we should now see that despite the fact it spawns in the ground and it's spinning around on top of a sign, it actually takes control over any mascot suit. What are you doing? There we go. It actually takes over the mascot suit that it's supposed to be wearing. I don't know why it's doing that. That's interesting. Again, I guess that's just another Minecraft AI thing. That's funny. Do I have to redesign my map to work around these Minecraft zombie AIs? Might have to. I told you, command blocks are really fun. They might be annoying at times, but god, this is so worth it. Now, I say command blocks are fun and all, but up next is the animation side of things, which you bet is gonna take a bit. There really isn't anything interesting about this part. It's quite literally me just going back and forth between a command block and the armor stand model until I eventually find an animation that I actually like. With that being said though, it is quite entertaining watching it at this speed in a time-lapse. Surprisingly, this actually went the exact way I wanted it to. So these two command block rows right here are for two different animations, whether it be for walking or standing. So at the start of the standing command, it's checking to see if the entity M2 is standing still, and of course the one for when it's walking is checking if the entity is not standing still. Either way, all of this works in the exact same way, it's just that the rotations are set to different values depending if it's walking or standing still. Now, like I also said, it's only doing this to the entity with a set name. It's not doing this to a specific model, it's doing this for any armor stand with the name that is closest to M2. Meaning, when the zombie now teleports to one of those models, it's then going to apply that animation to any model that it picks. So let's go ahead and see this in action all together. So let's load in all of our armor stand models, spawn in our zombie, teleport it up to a random one, and now we're going to notice that one of the mascot suits is going to start moving. So at some point we should start seeing that one of the armor stands is either walking around or is just in an idle animation. So, well, I'm going to guess it's this one right here, as it's missing We just need to find it. It's up there. You can see that it's actually walking around, and if I go into survival mode, how it's actually going to start walking after me. Now, eventually, I will set it up to be a lot faster than this when it actually catches eyes on the player, but for now, I just wanted to get the default animation set up. Now, what I've also done is link this up to the entry system, meaning if I go ahead and unload this area, it's then going to kill off the zombie and then set the armor stand back to its original position, meaning if I now go ahead and see where the original mascot suit was placed at, it's now going to be back in place and the Mimic is no longer active. Let's go ahead and do this again a second time and see if we can find another mascot suit. There you go. Now it is the orange mycelium man, and it is the exact same animation that plays out for all of them. So the walking animation and then the idle animation once it actually stands still. If I go ahead and unload the area, it's then going to kill off the entity again. And then when I go back, we're going to see that the armor stand teleports back in place. Now, while that pretty much wraps up how a mascot suit is going to work, that doesn't mean that I'm quite done just yet, as there's a few more things I want to do first. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and moved over to the main warehouse and added in the Chica mascot suit, where I did have to change up the animation a little bit just so that it fits the character a bit better. But as you can see, it is going to wander around the warehouse whenever, then when it stops moving, it does a little dance just like in game. Now, since Chica is the main character that appears in the warehouse, there's not going to be any mechanics to swap out suits for something else. So what I want to do is take a look at some other gameplay mechanics connected to the mascot suits, with the first one being distractions. And I've actually found out a way to get this to work. So what I'm going to use is a villager by spawning it in right here with no AI. Now, normally a zombie would start following it whenever it sees it. However, if it's on the other side of the room like we see right here, it's obviously not going to have a line of sight on the villager and just completely ignore it. However, what I can then do is use this command right here, which damages the zombie by making it seem like the villager is the one that damaged it in the first place, which is then going to get the attention of the zombie, which is then going to come right on over. And unlike every other system I've made so far in this video, this entire thing just involves these two command blocks right here. Seriously, this is it. So it's checking to see if the button has actually been pressed, and then it's going to see if there isn't already another distraction villager somewhere in the world. So since I only want one distraction to be active at a time, it's not going to power the command block if there's already an entity called distraction somewhere else. If there isn't, it's then going to run the summon command, which is then going to spawn in the villager itself, before then activating this damage command, which is then going to lure the zombie over to the villager. So if I go ahead and press this again, we're now going to see that wherever Chica is, she's now going to wander on over to the distraction device. Now what we want to do is get rid of the villager, however I can't just kill it off because we would then see the particles of it dying. So instead what I'm going to do is run a TP command and teleport the tag distract, and I'm just going to teleport it 200 blocks down, that way it gets teleported out of the world. So if I go ahead and do that, it should already be powered since Chica's right here, and if I try to kill any villager, you can see none exist because it was teleported out of the world. With that being said, I need the actual distraction music itself, so I'm currently using play sound commands to get note block sounds to play, and instead of using repeaters, I'm using scoreboards. And as you can tell, it's going about as well as you would think. Now, just in the main warehouse alone, there are 5 of these types of distractions. So if I go ahead and use another one, you can see that she's going to stop doing whatever she's doing and wander on over to this distraction, just like how she does in game. So all I have to do is get out of line of sight from Chica, then she's going to start ignoring me and instead go after the distractions. So let's go ahead and push another one of these buttons. And now we can see she's making her way all the way around over to the other side where I pushed the distraction. But these cutouts aren't the only way that we can distract the Mimic, as there's also boxes all around MCM with wind-up rats inside them, which we can then throw to get the Mimic's attention. And believe it or not, but I think that I found a way to get this to work. Now with that being said, you're either going to love this method, or you're going to hate me for it. As you might have guessed, this starts with an interaction entity, which is going to spawn directly on top of me whenever I hold it in my hand, and then despawns whenever I let go of it. From there, this command block is checking to see when I'm holding the item in my hand and I left click on the interaction, which is then going to power these 3 command blocks. This first one here is what summons in the armor stand, which is going to determine how far the rat is actually going to get thrown. So 1 block on top of me and 1 block in front of me, this armor stand with the tag throw is going to then spawn. From there, this scoreboard right here is going to be set to 1 and is going to then keep on increasing because this command block right here is telling it to do so. Next is this repeating command block, which is actually what gets the item to be thrown away from me instead of just dropping at my feet. So if the scoreboard matches 1 through 5, it's then going to activate the command at the entity that we've just spawned in, and is then going to check if the block in front of it is set to air. Now this is very important as it's going to make sure that the armor stand doesn't get teleported through a wall and is instead going to stop moving once it hits a solid block. From there, it's just going to make sure that the armor stand is going to keep on getting teleported 1 block in front of it, facing the same direction as me. That way the armor stand actually teleports in the direction that I threw the item at. And that's really the hard part of the system out of the way with, is just the teleportation of the armor stand, as the rest of it works in a very similar way to the other distractions. Now this command block might look like it has a lot going on with it, but it's not as complicated once you break it down. So executing the command at the position of the armor stand, it's making sure that the block directly under it is not set to air. So this command basically means once the armor stand has hit the floor, it's then going to power the command block. We don't want the villager to spawn in if the armor stand is still floating in the air. So once the armor stand has hit the floor and there isn't already a distraction villager somewhere in the world, it's going to make sure that the throwing scoreboard matches 10 or more before then spawning in the villager itself. From there, it then damages the zombie to get its attention, before it then kills the armor stand as we no longer need it in this contraption. Now, is this the most efficient or effective way to do this? Probably not, but I gotta be honest, I am proud of the way that I went about doing it. With that being said though, I have now polished up the mechanic by first of all adding in the actual boxes that the rats spawn inside, where clicking on it is then going to give me the actual item itself. From there, now when I throw the item, instead of there just being absolutely nothing, a physical rat is now going to spawn, which Chica is then going to run over to. So this just lets us know where the distraction itself actually landed. Then just like always, once it ends, it's then going to destroy the armor stand, that way there's no extra entities around the build. So one more time, let's just go ahead and throw another one over this way. It's going to get Chica's attention, and she's then going to walk over to it, giving me plenty of time to go wherever I need to. Seriously, what are you doing? Do I really need to redesign this? So with the distraction mechanics now fully wrapped up, this leaves one last mechanic left to add, which you can actually see directly behind me. In fact, there's 3 of them, and that is of course the lockers. In case we get caught by the Mimic and we don't have a distraction nearby to use, our last resort is to hide inside one of these lockers, which I of course want to make functional. Now you're probably wondering how on earth a player is supposed to fit in here. This is quite literally a 1x2 rectangle with solid blocks, meaning the player would suffocate if they were to somehow get inside of this build. But the answer should be obvious as to why once I do this. So let me just get rid of both of these blocks right there, and this is it. It should be pretty obvious how this works now. All I need to do is set my attribute scale to a smaller number so that way I can fit inside the gap, and now you can see this is exactly how I'm going to be hiding inside of this locker. So the staircase gives me a small gap to hide inside, and then by decreasing my scale small enough to fit in the gap, this is exactly how I'm going to be able to hide away from Chica. So now after putting all of that inside of these command blocks and setting up an interaction entity, when I left click over this interaction, it's going to get rid of both the banner and the concrete, set that block to a staircase, and then finally sets my scale to be small enough to fit inside. So the last thing to do really is just set up a teleport command to teleport me inside of it, and then a second interaction entity to let me leave the locker. I bet you thought this was going to be a lot more complicated than it actually is, but as always, I find a way to make it work. So with the rest of it now set up, when I walk up to the door again and left click on it, I then get put inside the locker where I'm not able to look around. I've done this intentionally as sometimes the lockers will have a gap on either side of them, and I think that would be unfair for you to be able to see 90 degrees on either side of where the opening is supposed to be. However, if I go ahead and left click again while inside the locker, it's then going to take me back out of it, put the blocks back in place, and now it's back to just being a normal locker. Now if you're wondering if this is going to work in survival mode, it absolutely does. It does not suffocate the player. I made sure that the player was just small enough so that way they wouldn't get suffocated, as obviously we don't want that to happen. Now there is one more thing that I need to set up, is if I go back into survival and then hide inside the locker, Chica is still going to come after me because she still knows where I am. I'm not hidden from the zombie even though it can't reach me right now. So the way I'm going to solve this is by using teams, which is not something I've used a lot before. However, if I'm on the same team as the zombie, it's no longer going to become hostile towards me. So this starts by doing /team, and I'm just going to type in locker for it, and that is going to be our team. So now all I need to do is, first of all, add the mimic to that team. So team add, or team join locker at E tag equals M2. And I'll put this in a repeating command block, that way you know what I mean at this point. I don't know what it's doing anymore. But either way, now that it's part of that team, now I need to set the player to be that team. So once again, I'm going to do team join locker, but this time I'm going to do at P. And then what I'm going to do on the other side is leave that team. So team leave at P. And that's just going to leave any team completely. So now if I go ahead and do the same thing again, I'll go back into survival so that way Chica can start chasing after me. Now if I hide inside the locker, she's going to completely ignore me since we're both on the same team and the zombie thinks that I'm friendly. Let's now go ahead and see this all together. So right now Chica is over there. Let's go ahead and lure her over here. So she's going to take that way. She's going to completely ignore me, which now lets me get around her. Now the next mechanic is actually back there. I want to show off the wind-up mice, but I lured her over to it, so let's lure her back over here. So once again, she's heading over to it, completely ignores me, and lets me get past her. So again, with all of the distractions, the wind-up mice or the lockers, all of those I will be adding, possibly on a live stream, honestly. I've said I've been adding all of the doors on live streams, but honestly, every other mechanic is free to use as well. Let's go ahead and lure Chica over here. So I drop the rat on the ground. She now walks over to it and lets me run away from her and go wherever else I need to go. However, let's say I don't have one of these on us and my only option is to hide away from Chica. So we then have lockers set up where if I'm being chased by her, I just need to hide in one of the lockers and now I've completely escaped out of her view. And again, since this is based on a tag and a team, it means no matter what locker it is or no matter what mascot suit is being used, this is going to work across the entirety of MCM. So that now wraps up everything I wanted to do for this video. I actually got quite a bit done looking back on it, all within the span of a week as well. First of all, we got all of these mascot suits to teleport inside the workshop, then we got the mimic to become one of them at random, then of course we added in all of the distractions, and then just now the locker to hide away from. But with all of that being said, there is still one thing that we're missing, and that is, of course, the mimic itself. I know I started the video off by saying this, but I've just made a bunch of mascot costumes walk around the build. I haven't actually made a model of the mimic. My name might not be Edwin, but I just built the Mimic in Minecraft, and it's about time that I built my favorite animatronic currently in the series, but I really like how this guy turned out. I'm not sure where I'm going to put him in the map right now, gotta be completely honest with you, but I'm definitely going to be posing this guy for the thumbnail. I think I did a really good job trying to capture as many details as possible on such a small scale like this. Like, this isn't a big or bulky mascot costume, this is a tall and slender endoskeleton, which can make it difficult to work with. So you can see what I've done to add in extra details is used armor trims on some of the limbs, as well as actually using separate armor stands for the wires that connect the box in the center of his chest to the different arms on either side. Now, as for the data diver box in the middle, this is actually an upside down shulker box, so that way it actually has like a spiral pattern in the middle, which I think works really well when you see what I'm trying to recreate. And just because I was curious, I went ahead and went over to my model world where I just have all of my models for my maps and thumbnails and put M2 next to the Ruin Mimic, where you can now see the difference between the two. And I will say, I'm still struggling to decide which one I prefer more. I think I prefer this model over the other one, but when it comes to the actual in-game characters, it's been nearly 4 months at this point and I still can't decide which version of the Mimic I prefer more. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts in the comments, as well as which version of the one I've made that you prefer. That is now going to wrap up this episode of adding Secret of the Mimic gameplay into Minecraft. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you have any other ideas for gameplay that I should add in the next one, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And while you're at it, make sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel with all notifications turned on, that way you don't miss out on the next time I upload, and can also help the channel to continue to grow. But with that being said, thank you everyone so much for watching, and I will of course see you in my next video.